Okay, hello everyone. I'm Eve. I can't hear anyone. It's very weird. I can see Denise's mouth moving and I can see some chat. I know lots of communication is happening, but I hear nothing. So if there's anything you want to ask me or stop me, please do it in the chat and I'll try and keep an eye on that while I'm going through this. There is also a ballet class going on in the hall just here, so I'm sorry if it's a bit noisy. Just let me know if I need to speak up. I agreed to do this because I have watched a few of these. So when Denise sent the email out asking, I always feel like, well, you know, if I use it for my own gain, I should probably put something back in. And it's just an inset that I created for my school probably nearly 2 years ago, just to show how to use Digimaps across the curriculum. So I haven't done anything special for today. I've just removed some photos of some children, and I'm just going to talk you through what we did. So let me get this up. Now you've disappeared from the corner, so let me see if you can I can get you back. No, I've made you bigger. There you are. Okay, so I can see Denise. I'm presuming chat will come up here if anyone needs to say something. Okay, so my Digimaps journey, when I became sort of joint geography lead at my school, I was like, well, I need to learn a little bit about this. So I saw that there was some free training at the Royal Geographic Society with Darren. If anyone has attended or has met Darren, he's really, really good. He's very enthusiastic. He really gives you a lot of sort of ideas and passion for the subject. And he said that if there was a certain amount of teachers who attended an inset, he'd come and do training at your school for free. So booked him, and he came and did that for all the teachers. Any new teachers since then have done the online training, and that will continue sort of next year. So just saying again, this is sort of slightly adapted from an inset that I did to all of the different year groups, not so much year 6, because at the time their medium-term plans hadn't been changed, so I hadn't actually I didn't know what they were teaching as such. So year 6 isn't covered in here, so apologies any year 6 teachers, but there is year 5, so depending on what you teach in your phase, maybe it covers some. So this was about a year after we introduced Digimaps. I had been using it in year 5 because my partner teacher was the computing lead, so it was really easy because he was really great at it and he just knew how to sort of do it really fast. But I think other year groups, you know, just anything new, anything that is linking to technology just is a little bit daunting and time consuming to start with. But actually Digimaps really isn't. Once, you know, I set up the folders for each year group, showed the kids how to log on and do, it's really, really not that hard. So starting with, I'll talk about EYFS at the end. So this is starting with year 1. What we teach in our school. This is a bird's eye view of our school. The main building is here. We have a language unit there. This is our playground. This is our extra big playground. So they already do a sort of teddy bears hunt around the school looking for clues. And so this was something they could do sort of after that. Looking at aerial photographs, maybe talking about what journey they did, how they got from one place to another using appropriate language. For Key Stage 1, I've told my school that I don't expect children to be logging into Digimaps. It's more something that a teacher's tool should be using, either on the smart board or using it to sort of print out things for worksheets or for things in books. I don't, not for children to be logging on particularly. I think it might be a bit hard for them. It also links into year 2, what we teach, understanding that a map is a 2D representation of the real 3D world. So it's what they know. They walk in it every day. So to see it from a different point of view. Also bringing in human and physical features. Although we are in Zone 2 London, we do have lots of trees, and just here, this side of our school, we have a big park that we go to all the time. So it's quite easy for us to sort of talk about the differences between human and physical features. So here are some questions I said that they could do. So how did we get from the big playground here back to our class. If I'm standing in reception playground, which is here facing the language unit, I turn left, I walk past another building, where am I? These are all things that can be done verbally or sort of response to marking questions in books. Links, they can draw a simple picture to recount what they did. They can follow a route on a map. So it links into all the sort of our progression grids that have come from the curriculum. And all the directional language, near, far, up, down, left, right, forwards and backwards, that's meant to be covered in Key Stage 1. Year 1 also have a seaside topic. They used to go to, this is Broadstairs, they used to go, but that hasn't happened for a few years, I think due to cost, but they still cover and look at up here, like all the different words that you're meant to talk about: coast, sea, ocean. And so as they used to go to Broadstairs, I used it as something that they could still do in class, and about, again, a bird's eye view. I showed them that all of these different numbers mean photos, so you can click on it and it will take you right down and see the view from that place. So from a bird's eye view, this line doesn't look like anything, it just looks like the end of the beach. But when you actually go to a photo here and look back, you realize it's a cliff and how high it is. So those dimensions, that with a 2D image, it doesn't quite show you what it is like in 3D. But the shadow here was a little bit of a clue for any sort of eagle-eyed children that might notice that actually this must be higher because there is a shadow there. In year 2, they have a topic about Katie Morag, which I'm not sure if it is a TV show for kids anymore, but it was, and it's set in Scotland. So they do a lot of comparison between where Katie Morag lives compared to where we live in London. So again, using Digimap to sort of look at the area. What is this? Do you think it's a physical human feature? We don't know. What could it be for? Then again, using one of those little green dots to look at the photos. It's human. We can see now that this is not natural. Unlike the cliffs or the hills in the background, this is not natural. What's it for? Why is it built? Hopefully using the clues of the boats, just to investigate and talk a bit more, rather than just giving facts to children. In year 3, which is my year now, we are called John Ruskin School, and there is also a John Ruskin School in the Lake District. So we compare these two different schools, their locations, what it must be like to live there, etc., etc. So Digimaps was great for them to explore the area, to go and have a little look around and see what they could and couldn't, how different it was. Again, human physical. Because this is Key Stage 2, the children have logged on themselves and are looking around. We haven't had them do any saved work so far, but I think that could happen for year 3, but definitely from year 4 up, children are saving work. Sort of showing the route from the school to the local shops, etc. We didn't save any of that. It was something we just sort of did as we logged on. Then using some of the Digimap sort of historical features where you can go back and have a little look. So let's look at what it looks like today in the top to what it looked like in the 1890s. So can you tell which is which? What clues are there? Well, in this one, we know that at the end of our road, there's a train track here, and this is a train track here. We've already done symbols as well, so that's something that we can link in with an earlier topic. Even though it looks a lot less built up than now, it still looks much more built up than maybe the Lake District did back then. Again, bringing in some of the symbols here that we can see on the Ordnance Survey map. The children really like that. We also, I don't know if I can mention Google Maps, whether that's something you're not allowed to say when you're talking about Digimaps, but we got the little man down and we actually walked around the school, we walked around the streets, and they were really surprised at just how different life is when you live outside of London. We also have a topic about mysteries of Mother Earth, which we've just finished. We've just come back from a trip to the Natural History Museum where we had a workshop on earthquakes and volcanoes. And before that, we logged on and we looked at all the features, and I let them discover it. I sort of told them what I wanted them to find, but I didn't show them where to find it. So they, in little groups, had to go on and find all the volcanoes of the world. Here, I think the tectonic plate boundaries, which we did a bit of work on, you know, I mean, learning about them, but also from a map point of view, where they are, why there is land in certain place, because of the tectonic boundaries, you know, being together and creating land. But yeah, as much as possible, they were to sort of explore and find this themselves and to look at the differences and other things that we're not even learning, mountain ranges that they found and found exciting. Year 4, there's a unit called Shout About Southwark. I don't know if every school has one unit a year, which is sort of about your local area, but we do. So there's always talk about where we live. It's also where we start to introduce the 4-figure grid references. We do the 8-figure compass directions in year 3, and it's on the wall. I think I've got a slide later about that. But using Digimaps to bring up the 4-figure grid reference. Obviously, it's not here. It's 6, but using what we know. We also, in year 4, they go swimming every week. So can we plan the route? So they actually did the route one day. Well, every week they do it, and they sort of noted how they were moving. Then they looked at it on Digimaps, right? What features do we have? What can we see? What is recognizable? Can we draw it? And then the next week, sort of with their maps as they're walking, did they get it right? You know, they also do a unit on France. So again, mountain ranges is something they looked at briefly. Population, why is it so red here? What does this mean? What could it be? Capital city, why is it a capital city? Why do most people live in capital cities, etc.? Obviously not all, but a lot of them do. Here, this is a nice thing. I got all the teachers, none of them got that. And if I had a mic, I'd ask you, so what are we looking at? Everyone said the Thames, but it's not. We're looking at Paris here. So it looks just like the Thames to me, but it's not, it's Paris. So a really good discussion about why cities are built around rivers. We've actually in history just started ancient Egypt. And again, they talk a lot about the Nile, and the Nile being a really important part of why Egypt was such a great and fertile place. So we've discussed that, even though we're in year 3, we've discussed about why people live around water, the benefits for that, and why you would live next to a river that floods every year and damages things. Why would you still stay? In the same way with volcanoes. In year 5, so this was when I was in year 5, we just introduced Digimaps. Our first lesson of our unit on Brazil, which sort of ends with us looking into the Amazon rainforest, and writing a letter to the president, who has changed since we first started it, on why they should stop cutting down the rainforest. But we started with, here are some questions. Here's a laptop, here's Digimaps, off you go. And it was the first time they'd ever logged on. By now, year 5 children have been introduced to it, so they might be able to answer these questions a little quicker. But the year I did it with them, they just had to find it and look around, understand what all the dots mean. So what a purple dot means versus a red dot, etc. Looking at biomes, population, equator. There was lots of those sort of tabs down the side that they'd have to move between and go back and forth, and then comparing from that very first lesson. So here, just some of the things you can see. So the lines of latitude, which we cover with the equator, the biomes, which they do, I think, a bit more work in year 6 about. Again, looking at the temperature change. So from this is, you know, 1970s to 2000s, and this is 2001 to what they predict it will be 2040. And the children were all shocked at that. I mean, that's a really visual image to show how our world is warming. And on a day like today, it feels very current. I don't know where you are in the country, but it's very, very hot down here in London. In year 5, again, comparing our local area, and we picked Horsham because that was the other year 5 teachers where he grew up, and this is where I grew up in East Dulwich. That's actually the house I used to live at, 40 on Dun Road. Getting them to sort of find it on the map, follow the location where you get to. This was actually for teachers because where you actually end up is a pub for the bishop. The kids, I wouldn't make it a pub, I'd probably make it the toy shop opposite, but this was an inset for teachers. Something else we do in year 5 is a high street shop survey. So lots of talk beforehand about our local area, what kind of shops, how can we group shops? We can't just have each shop having its own colour. Can we group them as much as possible? The children lead on that. They might need a bit of help, sort of, you know, what does a restaurant look like? Is it something that you just sit in, or can it be something you take food out, like a takeaway, or a mixture of both? So making those decisions, then walking up to a certain point in the high street, and as we do, noting down like a tally, and noting down what each shop is. So I think some children did tallies, some children had the map and color coded sort of as we slowly walked on, and then came back and actually did this on Digimaps, which was saved work. So it shows you that we've got like a restaurant here, food shop, restaurant, clothes shop, a service of some kind, all the way up, which they really liked, and actually reminded me a lot of my geography fieldwork GCSE. So I'm sure it was a lot more complex for GCSE, but still a lot of the same style of learning. And I think, yeah, so that's where I ended with literally looking at our medium-term plans and Digimaps and trying to show links for them to go and develop in their classroom. But then I just showed a few other little things to do with geography that some linked to Digimaps. Just trying to get this vocabulary in about the north, south, east, west, and the 8 points. So every class is meant to have a compass on the wall. I hope I do. Yes, I do. It's over there. And we're a big fan of sort of doing short, quick tests, like a recap at the start of the day or at the start of a subject. And so using something that you can move. So in year 5, we do a book called The Lost Thing. And so just have this cut out and laminated, and just every few days move it, getting children to sort of say where it is, where is it now, just to keep that vocabulary used and fresh in their head. A really great book in year 3 that we did. It's for more talented and able children, Amazing Africa. It's a beautiful book. I mean, I'd use it with lots of children because I think you can change the activities. But this is one of their lessons where you give them a map, this map of Africa, which is colourful and also has little pictures of things related to each country, and a 8-point compass, and getting them to write some questions. So here, what is it a map of? Is it a country or continent? They're very good at that now because of the continent song, which they do a lot of in year 2. And then create 5 statements about what you see. For example, Somalia faces the Indian Ocean. There's a camel in Libya, which is west of the pyramids in Egypt, etc. So here's some of the examples they did here. So bringing geography into guided reading. And then for early years, geography is very much about the child, localize what they do, play, etc. And we have a lot of children working at an early years level, but in Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2. So how we can adapt their learning. So this is what they should be. This is a sort of key things of learning in early years. And I've had to take out the photos, but for those children, I contacted all the teachers and said, could you contact parents and ask for photos of children, you know, maybe in the park, on the swing, you know, next to their bed, take a photo of like their favorite teddy, where they sit at the table or on the sofa at night. And then we took lots of photos in school of them at lunch, sitting doing their work, in the music, in the playground. And so we use those photos a lot with those children to create sentences for phonics. So like, who are you next to? You know, that person using the phonics to people's names or for different objects. Like, dislike, what happens in the morning, what happens in the afternoon. Sequencing, what happens first, what happens next, you know, do we have lunch before we go home, etc. So using lots of the photos to teach those children who are in higher years but still working at an early years level. And I think that is it. So that is what all the staff have seen. I think Digimaps is being used. When I log in, I can see more folders that have been created. People come and ask me sometimes the odd question. In assembly and sharing assembly, I've seen some work being used from Digimaps, which is great. And it links into computing, which is not meant to be this sort of standalone subject. It's meant to be something that sort of is incorporated across the curriculum. I explained, and so did Darren when he came in, that it can be used for maths, more for higher years, I'd say, but for maths, you know, really understanding area and perimeter rather than just it being sort of on worksheets. Yeah, history, it's definitely used for history. They're like about our local area when they're learning about the Victorian times, they definitely go back and see the changes in the buildings of our local area. So I feel like it's being used a lot across our school. I'm sure there's it can be developed and used more, but I think it's been a real asset to our school. And that is me.